Hello, and welcome back to Sharing a Chapter a Day. This is Me, and today I will be reading Chapter 27 of Engagement in Peril by Dara, Odoe, Sup. Chapter 27 is titled Passions and Tongues. Now let me warn you, this chapter has some parental warning as well. So, things will be rated X here. After a while, like almost everything we do together, going to Suzanne's house became a routine for me. Every time her parents aren't around and when she isn't helping them out at their donut ice cream shop, she would call me on the phone and had me come over to her home. So I, with my young raging hormones then, would hurry out of my apartment, jump out of my back door, jump over my 8-foot high steel fence and wall, run across the alley, and jump over her 5-foot brick wall and across the backyard and straight into her house I would be. And every time that I am over at her place, we would always make out, kissing, hugging, tonguing, and after a while, things began to get hot and bothered between Suzanne and I. Things got really hot and bothered. Now, this was where Dara began to experience and experiment with biting and groping at various body parts and appendages. He was quite the curious George then, said me who was once quite the eager beaver like him. Though Suzanne and I never actually had sexual intercourse, where my erect penis would intrude into her vaginal opening, but we came close many a times. Our usual make-out session included locking lips and tongue wrestling. From there, a little busy hand would move up and down, groping at each other as though we were pieces of meat. I usually have my hands in her blouse, up her back, and slowly crawling up to release her bra strap. And then the fun begins. I would squeeze and pinch at her breasts. Her eyes glisten, which she let me know that she's getting horny herself, and her inviting ways would reply with some come here hither look. By the time it was her turn to pleasure me, I had already had a hard on, waiting for her to grope and stroke on me. Suzanne's large fun bags were quite enjoyable then, so luscious and also firm in my suckling lips. She would stroke me up and down, causing me to bite hard on her neck and shoulder as I readied myself to come all over her hand. And as we continued doing that, at times I would explode all over her breast and naked body at times. But we always had our limits. We never went to the point of sexual intercourse, though we wanted to, but we knew better. Our young intellect mind and adventurous mind worried about getting pregnant and having to face our parents about our sexual deviance and encounters. And we both agreed to wait a while, or at least until we were done with high school and such. So that's what we had told each other then. For this I can personally say, damn Dara, you're quite the beast then. Too bad you aren't the same young buck I used to know. Poor Dara. You're quite sad now. Your sickness has driven your once vital youth to this old ragged piece of shit you are now. I curse that bitch Delilah for giving you those illnesses. She was quite the infectious bitch, wasn't she? She infected and killed off your beloved Shin and also had riddled you with similar diseases and infections. Sorry to say, Dara. I'm sorry to say that, being sympathetic to Dara's last plight. Now, Suzanne and I set limits for one another. We could only go to the point of touching and groping each other harshly and passionately, and then we would stop, and we were careful about our sexual escapade. I remember giving Suzanne oral pleasure once or twice. How did I learn these techniques, you ask? Well, I picked up these techniques by viewing adult magazines and videos, like Hustler, Swank, and etc. And where did I get these magazines? Well, from stashes I found in the closet and alleyway. Things people throw out. Dirty people. Also, I've seen a few adult videos in my younger years, when I was living in the Denver projects. I think that Suzanne loved to be pleasured orally the most because it seemed that while I was down there, ravaging at her young oyster-like lips, licking, sucking, nibbling at her clitoris and such, her body seemed to squirm and twitch at every touch and bites, and she would come all over my face and mouth at times as she exploded and juiced all over me during our makeout sessions then. Now, while she climaxed, she usually would have a pillow over her face to drown out her enjoyable screams and moans. Also, to prevent her younger sister Annie from hearing her moaning screams and of us going at it like dogs from next door. I don't ever believe that Suzanne ever gave me oral pleasure. Not that I could remember. But I remember, no, she gave me a lot of hand jobs. I like to think she did that time. I'm sure she did. Anyhow, I still had a good time all the same. Just the knowledge that I was pleasuring my love then gave me the eagerness to give it to her and pleasure her even more in the long run. Gosh, Dara, you were eating pussy already then. You were just 13 years old, you sick son of a bitch. And to think that you remember all this? You're quite amazing with your long-term memories. I must give you props for that. To remember those times, it was quite tasty then, wasn't it? Said my older self now. Our sexual encounter and trial happened everywhere in her house, from her parents' bedroom, her room, the living room, the kitchen to the bathroom stalls. Boy, we were quite the super freaks then, Suzanne and I. We made out all over the place throughout the house, on her couch, on the floor, living room floor, kitchen, closet, backyard, front yard, bathroom, bushes, in her parents' room, on her parents' bed, in her room, on her sister's bed, on her brother's bed, in her closet, in her parents' closet, everywhere we could think of. It happened whenever we wanted to, and I usually made the first move. Well, mostly. I made the first move to grope and touch her sexually, to arouse her. Boy, was I horned up then. Just a horn dog. But she went along for the ride. We both enjoyed our times then. Also, several times we did it in the bushes that were in front of her home. You believe that? We both were only 13 years old then. We were such sexual deviants. Damn, Dara. Quite amazing, unbelievable, and unbearable you two were doing then. You both were the nastiest people I've known. For this I can say. I should have been there to slap some sense into both of you then. Didn't you care what the neighbor may say or what they told your parents about you guys were making out? What the fuck? What if Annie had snitched on both of you? I was questioning my past sinful actions then. Now, during our sexual escapade, I loved jabbing my fingers and fists inside of Suzanne from behind. In the sense that way I get to see her juicy ass and her newly grown pubic hair around her vaginal area and region. She would usually come all over my hands with her warm, white gooey cream, and her vaginal reminded me of freshly open raw muscle, similar to the one I open up to use as bait while I go fishing at the beach. At times I would eat at her gooey lady part, raw, just like eating sushi. Now, if you have ever opened up a muscle, you would know what I mean. I'll describe it to you anyhow. Okay, you open up a muscle by prying it open with a knife or something sharp. Jab it inside the muscle shell, along its lining. In that way, it would open up evenly, exposing all the meat. Looking at the newly opened muscle will remind you of a spread open clitoris. There's the wet meaty part which leads to the innard. Along the edges are thicker skin lining which keeps the muscle intact, and at the bottom is a hair-like substance that resembles that of pubic hair. And the meat of the muscle? So juicy and clammy. Just what a vagina would look like and smell like at times. And how does it taste? Do you dare ask? Well, it didn't really have a taste to it. It depends on the person and mood. It could be salty at times, probably due to her horniness or sweat. It could also be tangy or clammy at times. Maybe she didn't clean herself after urinating. But it was all good to me then. I was quite enjoying pleasuring her orally. It gives my tongue a workout. And after giving Suzanne that oral workout, My tongue would sometimes be numb for a while after I was finished pleasuring Suzanne orally. Besides orally fixated on her lady part, at times we would make out on the bathroom stall while she was urinating. I would squeeze her large breasts, pinching, cupping them and biting on them. I would suck and pull on her breasts as if though I was a famished infant, like it was a lollipop or sweet treat. Our make-out session would last hours, usually until we both are covered in sweat and gooey stains, and are too tired to continue with our heavy petting and stroke upon each other's body. I had quite the stamina then, being 13. I was strong. I had the energy. I would keep going and going, sometimes to the point of making her dry down there. Yes, readers, yes, causing her to be dry vaginally. I was working her to the point of exhaustion at times, and in return, I would enjoy myself off. Of course, I got myself off in the process as well. Hoorah to you, Dara, for being able to pleasure a 13-year-old girl that way. I hope you got your nuts off too then, huh? I joked, admiring my young self then. Besides sexually feeling each other up and down at her house, I would also have sexual session at my house, or well, my apartment. I would bring her over to my apartment when my parents weren't around and no one else was home. My neighbor would see me bring her into the house and they snitched and told my parent later on. Mother didn't mind if I brought a girl into the house as long as I didn't do anything that would bring shame, harm, or trouble to the family. The shame if I told my mother about it. I sinned much back then. Once at my house, straight to my room we would go and go at like dogs we would. On my bunk bed, on the floor, the closet, the bathroom, and such. We also had the audacity to have sexual encounter at her parents' donut ice cream shop. Yes, that's right, at her parents' donut shop off Atlantic and 56th Street. What the fuck were you thinking, Dara? Bringing your girlfriend to your home to fool around. You know you could have gotten the both of us in such deep shit. And what the fuck? You also had your ways with her at her parents' donut ice cream shop? You got some balls, man, I tell you. You got some balls. The shit that you could have put yourself into if you were caught there in the back of their store. I realize it now that as I meander over my past sinful event with Suzanne. Now, on days that she had to help her parents out at the donut ice cream shop, usually on the weekend, she would call me up on the phone and ask me to come over. With no hesitation, I put on my pair of jeans and a t-shirt and a pair of sneakers, run out of the apartment, and jump on the local Long Beach Transit bus off Atlantic and 19th Street. Once on the bus, I would eagerly make my way to her shop, and about 30 blocks or so north from where I was living, her family shop was up north in North Long Beach. While riding on the bus, I would daydream and fantasize about what I would do to Suzanne once we started making out at her store. Such an eager beaver you are, Dara. What a whore you were then. I laugh out loud about my eager, passionate self then. Now, once at her family donut ice cream shop, Suzanne and I had it all planned out beforehand. Now, if her parents were in the store and working, I would just hang out, pretend that I was just another customer going in there to get some ice cream, or some snacks, some donuts, or just to play the arcade game that was in their business establishment. And I played the role perfectly, nonchalant, and just being an average teen boy then. But once her parents were gone, out of the store, going to pick something up or whatever, Suzanne would invite me to the behind the counter and into the back room we would go. At most time, Annie and her brother would tend to the front counter, attending the customer and such, while Suzanne and I were in the bathroom or on the back room concrete floor, grabbing, poking each other with our hands and lip and such. Quite bold you were then, Dara. You're such a pussy now. You don't even have the balls to speak to the girl nowadays. I coughed up blood while I speak of this. We were like two wild, horned-up animals then, always going at it, as though the end of the world was coming. We didn't bother putting down a mat or such to keep our bare ass clean and dry. On the cold, hard concrete floor we would go at it, banging each other's body onto the floor. I, with my pants around my ankle, and my fist and finger jab up inside of her, would go at it. She, with her panties torn off and thrown to the side, would scream her moaning whisper while she'd bite into my shoulders with her gripping teeth. Her moans and yell would let me know that I was doing and giving it to her in the right way, just the way she likes it. I was quite the pleasuring fool then, when I was young. Her hand would busy herself with my erect penis while she stroked me up and down. Jesus Christ, Lord Almighty. It's like you two were making a porn video, Dara. What the fuck were you two young, ignorant teens doing then to yourself? Don't you know you're going to hell for those sort of sinful, horrendous acts? Questioned my young self then and now, remembering my past teenage life. Such a foolish boy I've been then. But then again, I can't really blame myself then. I was young and naive, and just straight out horny all the time. I was having those pubescent urges, and it had the best of me then. Now, once in a while, Annie would catch us or walk in on us while we're making out sexually, and would tell us that we were gross or something, and then be on her merry way back to her old business as though she hadn't seen anything. I'm sure she was quite intrigued with our sexual fiasco. Annie was quite curious about my makeout session with Suzanne. At times I would know that she was listening in against the door and peeping into our heavy petting and makeout session. And at times she sees me watching her, and I just smile. And at times she seemed to blush from seeing our naked bodies, although her eyes were wide open and absorbing what she was seeing. Perhaps she was learning something from our deviant fiasco. There were times that I had the opportunity to spend some time alone with Annie while Suzanne would be at their donut shop working with her parents, and Annie was home alone. I would get myself invited over to come over to their home, hang out with Annie. Annie had no problem allowing me to come over while her sister was away at work, and we would just hang out and watch television together. At times we would get close, but never made out. I'm sure we both wanted to, but we didn't want to hurt Suzanne's feeling, or hurt Suzanne at all. Thinking back now, I should have done things that I was doing with Suzanne with her younger sister Annie, but no regrets. It was a loss after all. See how such a bastard I was then, wanting my cake and eating it too. Suzanne and I had gotten very close. Well, really, really, really close. Deeply close. We started exploring each other's body. I would caress her bosom, nipple on her cherry nipples, give pleasure orally. We would get naked and touch and grope each other at times. Though we never had intercourse, but we came very close, many a times. Suzanne allowed me to finger bang her while she would choke my chicken and play around with my monkey and one-eye monster. Several times I ate away at her pies, sucked on it, sucked down every juice, made her dry. And usually she'll stroke me up and down to the point where we both climax and ejaculate on each other, all over each other, together at the same time. We were such horned up dogs then. Now, back then, my shaft had quite the foreskin. I was uncircumcised where I came from. Since came from a third world country, I still had my foreskin. I didn't get that fixed until later on in life, during my naval career. Suzanne and I fool around in every position possible. We just experiment with everything we knew. And sometimes her sister would walk in on us while we were fingering and molesting each other. We were quite horny then, for each of us, like wild animals. Damn right you two were, Dara. Such sinful, heinous act between such young teens. You both are damned for the rest of your life for this. You guys should have been beaten and burnt at the stake, you know. You two bastards deserved it, said the realized always sinful Christian adult who was reading and editing over this piece. This I can say, we both enjoy each other then. Suzanne and I, we taught each other, we learned from each other. Thank you for listening. This is the end of chapter 27. Be on the lookout for Chapter 28, titled Details Given to Girlfriends. Until next time, this is Do, Ra, Mi, and I'll see you later. Thank you.